All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
You're here for Thomas, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are we ready to proceed?
The client's mother is in some kind of waiting room, she reports to me.
She's not, I disabled the waiting room for this session, for this Zoom hearing.
She said she could only see herself.
I beg your pardon?
She said she could only see herself.
She's probably in a different Zoom session then. I don't think she's in this one.
Let me call her again.
Were you able to get a hold of her?
Connor, and I asked her to log out and log back in. I used the link that Ms. Kelleher sent me.
Ms. Broberg, how's the wife?
It's doing okay. Thank you for asking. Yeah, appreciate that.
Connor, and I asked her to log out and log back in.
Okay, thank you.
I used
Are you sure she's clicking the link that Ms. Kelleher sent?
Judge, can I ask a procedural question while we're waiting?
Sure.
Okay. Not having done this remotely yet, do you have a copy then of the master file already printed out for you?
I do. I have it printed out, bound, and labeled with petitions exhibit number 1.
Okay, fantastic. Then that's what I'll use. Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Ms. Coy, is this our last one for the year, or do we still have another?
Possibly have another.
at the bottom, yeah. And click that.
Possibly have one more?
Possibly, yes.
I'm not the judge you see more than any other judge, right? Like there's others you see more than me.
No, I feel like this, we've done quite a few these last couple of months. We've had a lot in a lot of the smaller counties lately too, with kids
Right.
turning 19 like this.
Just kind of spread out though among different counties.
Yeah. Like today we did 2 in Brown County and 1 in Bear County, and then this one.
They let Judge Garza go, didn't they? Yeah, I think this summer, June. Yeah, I think Pat Garza's gone.
Oh no.
Shame. Well, at least I can say Judge Menikos is the reason for most of our meetings. But almost all of those have cycled off now.
Almost, yes. Should have to look.
Yes, I'll have to own the rest of them. Better about single. You guys say okay. Still say long all right. Straight up Matthew McConaughey.
Like right in the middle of the sentence too. Get it.
That's my little thing.
Yeah.
Every judge has their own thing.
Everybody. That transfer. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Does that add money to my?
It probably does like make it feel better. Things like that. I feel like it's just costs a little more.
Right, sure.
Or just switching subjects. Yeah, he interrupts himself. Mr. Green, please tell me we're close.
I think she was on a different link, Your Honor, so I'm running her through it again. She's present, Your Honor. Oh, man.
All right, so we're ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, are you ready? The court will call cause number 323-107283-18. This is styled in the matter of Keandre Damone Thomas. We are here on a Texas Family Code 54.11 release or transfer hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to make a decision on whether to transfer this child to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division, or if this court should release the child to the community directly onto parole. So the court will take notice that a hearing is requested by the Texas Juvenile Justice Department on November 2nd, with this hearing to be held within 60 days of the request in order to make this determination. Here present is the respondent, Mr. Thomas, currently in the custody of the Tarrant County Sheriff's Department, appearing remotely via Zoom. We do have representing the state of Texas, Mr. Kevin Boneberg, also appearing remotely. Mr. Anthony Green, counsel for the respondent, is here appearing remotely. And we also have Miss Jeanette, Jeanette Thomas, the mother of the child, appearing. We have a representative, Ms. Tammy Coy, who is representing the legal custodian of the child, which is TJJD. We also apparently have a victim, Ms. Vanessa Brown, who is appearing also at this hearing. Mr. Boneberg, Mr. Willis, or Ms. Coy, have any of your departments received any written request for notification of this proceeding?
No, sir. This is the victim's sister that is present, and she was notified earlier by both departments, I believe.
Mr. Willis, has our juvenile probation department received anything? You're on mute.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Nothing other than from the Brown family.
Ms. Coy, has TJJD received any kind of written notice or written request?
Not recently, we have not, no.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Thomas, a couple things I want to go over with you. The purpose of this hearing is for me to decide whether to transfer you or to parole you. I can consider written reports and documents from probation, from consultants, from witnesses. If there is any written material, then your attorney has to have had access to it for at least 5 days before today's hearing. Right? Any kind of written matter is admissible. Right? You do have certain rights. You have a right to an attorney, and Mr. Green is your attorney and has been so for at least 10 days. You do have a right to confrontation. That means if any witness speaks adversely against you, okay, says anything that's about you negative, then your attorney can cross-examine them and ask them questions. You also have the right to present evidence and argument. That means your attorney can call witnesses or submit exhibits to the court to aid me in my decision, and that you have the right through your attorney to examine any kind of reports to be used. So the things that the law says I must consider in making this decision is your experiences and character of you before and after commitment to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the nature of the penal offense that you were found to have committed and the manner in which it was committed, the abilities of you to contribute to society, the protection of the victim of the offense or any member of the victim's family, the recommendations of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, County Juvenile Board, local juvenile probation department, and prosecuting attorney, your best interests, and any other factor relevant to the issue to be decided. At the conclusion of this hearing, I need to make a decision. I have to decide either to return you to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department or transfer you to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for the completion of your sentence. I can send, if I send you back to TJJD, I can do so with approval for the release under supervision, that is parole, without the approval for the release under supervision, which means TDCJ will come and pick you up. Or if I make no decision at all on your 19th birthday, you will automatically parole. The court will also make a finding or take notice that on March 28th, 2019, this court adjudicated this child delinquent in paragraphs 2 through 6 of the petition alleging delinquent conduct, specifically Texas Penal Code 2309, the offense of aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon, a felony offense to have been committed on March 3rd, 2018. The court also made an affirmative finding that a deadly weapon, specifically a firearm, was used. The District Attorney of Tarrant County waived paragraph 1. In a separate and distinct hearing, but on the same date, this court at disposition committed this child to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department under a determinate sentence disposition for 15 years of commitment. The court did admonish this child and made him aware that before his 19th birthday, he would appear before this court to review his case, for this court to make a determination on whether he should be paroled into the community or transferred to the Texas Texas Department of Criminal Justice. We'll also make a finding that the child's birth date is December 10th, 2001, meaning this child is not yet 19 years old, and the formal discharge date for this offense is June 7th, 2033. All right. I think I made the findings I need to, unless I miss anything. Mr. Boneberg, Mr. Green?
No, Your Honor.
No, sir.
All right.
I think that's completes it.
All right, opening or just roll right into it?
We'll waive opening, Judge.
Sounds good. Please call your first witness, Mr. Boneberg.
Okay, we'll call Tammy Coy, please.
Ms. Coy, if you could unmute yourself and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. Please proceed, Mr. Boneberg.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Coy, if you could please tell the court how you are employed.
I work for the Texas Juvenile Justice Department.
Okay, in what capacity?
I oversee the sentenced offender department, and we process all of the sentenced offender youth through our agency out to either TJJD parole, TDCJ parole, return to court hearings such as this, as well as early transfer hearings.
Okay. And so as part of your specific duties in that capacity, do you testify at hearings such as this?
I do.
And have you done so in the past?
Yes.
Okay. And you've done so, in fact, in front of Judge Kim before, correct?
Yes.
All right. And as part of your duties and responsibilities in that position, do you prepare what I've called a master file regarding the particular offender?
Yes.
Okay. We're here on an offender by the name of Keandre Thomas. Do you know that person?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see him here in the Zoom hearing?
Yes, he is in the green jumpsuit.
Green jumpsuit. Okay. Does he have a face mask on or not?
Yes, he does.
What color is the face mask?
It looks to be light blue.
Okay. May the record reflect, Your Honor, that the witness has identified the respondent?
It will so reflect.
Okay. Was a master file prepared in relation to or in reference to Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
And was that, how did you get that to all the parties?
I submitted an email through secure file transfer to the prosecutor, the defense attorney, as well as the court coordinator for Judge Kim's court.
Okay. And is that how you've been doing it here recently, especially in light of the pandemic?
Yes.
All right. And then is that master file, do you know, if you know the exact date, fine, but if you don't, how recently was that submitted to the court?
I believe I submitted it on November 6th.
Okay. So more than 5 days from this hearing, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so at this time, Judge, with the understanding that the court has in front of them Petitioner's Exhibit 1, that being the complete master file of TJJD, could we have an identifying feature presented that we might be able to show Ms. Coy?
in this binder, a letter from Ms. Tammy Coy. I don't know if you can see this or not.
Yes, I can.
There we go. Great. Okay. Ms. Coy, does that appear to be your that you would have attached to the master file at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. So at this time, Judge, we'll offer Petitioner's Exhibit 1, that being a copy and printout of the master file prepared in reference to Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Green, any objections?
No legal objection, Your Honor, and I did receive access to this file more than 5 days ago.
Petitioner's 1 is submitted.
Okay. So we'll be referencing just various parts of that master file. Do you have access to your own copy of that, Ms. Coy?
I do.
Okay, great. And just for the record, we'll be referencing either the Adobe Acrobat pages that show at the top of the program or the bait stamped numbers on the, I believe most of them are on the lower right-hand corner of the documents, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. So can you tell us what was Mr. Thomas, I believe the court briefly touched on it, but what was Mr. Thomas committed for originally?
He was committed to us for 5 counts of aggravated robbery.
And on what day was he committed to TJJD?
March 28th of 2019.
And then when did he arrive at your assessment unit?
April 3rd of 2019.
Okay. And is that what normally happens in the course of a commitment? They go
Yes.
there first.
Yes.
Okay. What is the aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon in the state of Texas? Are you aware of what degree felony that is?
It's a 1st-degree felony.
Okay. And so what is the minimum period of confinement on that particular offense?
36 months.
And what does that mean in terms of the hearing we're having here today, the minimum period of confinement?
The law requires that a 3-year minimum be completed. And at this point, due to his age, he's not able to complete the full 3 years before turning 19.
Okay. And so how long was his original sentence?
15 years.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And then at some point shortly after April 3rd of 2019, he was then assigned to Giddings State School, on to Ron Jackson, and then back to Giddings. Is that correct, where he remained until he was transferred here?
Yes.
Okay. And fair to say then from April 3rd of 2019 until he was transferred here, how many months commitment then was he with you all?
He was with us approximately 19 months.
How old, if you know, how old was Mr. Thomas at the time of the offense?
Oh, I don't know specifically off the top of my head,
Okay.
but he would have had to have been under 17.
Yes, ma'am. So if the offense was March 3rd of 2018 and he was born December 10th of 2001, looks like he hadn't yet turned, so he's 16. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And at that point that he is transferred to Giddings from the assessment unit, what's the purpose of that? Is that a high restriction unit, Giddings, or tell us about that, please?
Giddings is one of our high restriction facilities, and the transfer there would be so he could participate in treatment programming.
Okay. And we're going to talk briefly about the different stages. For the record, how many stages are there of programming for the youths committed to TJJD?
We have 5 stages.
Can you tell us when, and stage 1 obviously being the beginning, it goes from stage 1 through to, I believe, stage yes, correct?
Yes.
Yes being the 5th stage, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell us when Mr. Thomas would have entered stage 1, right upon or assessment? Is that right?
Yes, all youth start out at stage 1 at admission.
And then when would he have progressed to stage 2?
He earned stage 2 in October of 2019.
Okay. All right, before we go through the different stages and his completion dates there, I do want to talk a little bit about his committing offense, okay? Were documents related to his committing offense submitted to TJJD in the normal course of his transfer there back in March of 2019?
Yes.
Okay. For instance, you've had an opportunity to review things like the social history, the offense reports, the pre-diagnostic study, some of those documents that were created back here in Tarrant County through Juvenile Services, true?
Yes, those are in our master file.
Okay. Can you tell us, and if you need to reference a portion of your master file, can you briefly summarize what the committing offense was and Mr. Thomas's involvement?
So according to the psychological evaluation, which is the most recent document, a summary of the offense reads, regarding Keandre's committing offense, a surviving victim indicated that her female friend came into a motel room with 3 other people. The victims were robbed at gunpoint, including cell phones and a speaker. It is notable that police records indicate Keandre's co-actors were in their mid-20s and 30s. The surviving victim reported that her friend told the adult male to shoot the victim who was laying down in the bed. Records suggest that Keandre did not have the gun or shoot the victim. One of the cell phones was traced to Keandre and another co-actor who were attempting to sell the phones and the speaker.
And are you aware within the documents that in fact it was Keandre's idea to go to that motel room to try and retrieve his cell phone?
I do recall reading that in the treatment summary, I believe.
Okay. And additionally, that the victim who ended up dying was the one lying down in the bed at the time, correct?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now, are you aware that Mr. Thomas was not immediately arrested after the offense, that he ran and that there was some process involved in securing his apprehension?
Yes.
Okay. Now, regarding his delinquent history, can you briefly summarize what his history is with juvenile services, particularly those that he was on probation for while this offense was committed?
He was on probation for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, as well as possession of a controlled substance, penalty grade 1 of less than 1 gram.
Okay. Are you aware, and is it noted in your file, in your master file, that Mr. Thomas had in fact cut off his EM and was absconded when this offense was committed?
Yes.
Objection leading.
Okay. Now, if we can look at just regarding the offense and the use of the weapon within the offense, are you aware in the master file that you have of the statements Keandre makes regarding his use or possession of a gun before this offense? And if I can point you to a particular page. Would that help?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at what's Bates stamped as page 679, and this won't take but a moment, but it does detail some prior history of carrying weapons. Let me know when you get there.
I'm there.
Okay, and so I'm looking at the first full paragraph right underneath that table that's there. Okay, Do you see where it says that he carried brass knuckles at the age of 14 but never used them?
Yes.
Okay. What's the next sentence that he says regarding the gun, the next few sentences?
At 15, he carried a gun. Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, just up until the point where he says he never shot the gun at someone, just those
Okay.
couple of sentences.
He shot the gun about 20 times at the ground with peers. He never shot the gun at someone.
Okay. And then he details a little bit about his history of stealing, bikes, food from stores. He robbed homes and buildings and stolen a car. You see that, and then admits to selling drugs at age 16.
Yes, sir.
And again, he was 16 at the time of this aggravated robbery, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then. I want to turn to just again dealing with the committing offense, page 685, what's Bates stamped 685 for the record. Let me know when you're there.
I have it.
Okay, great. Just reading that long paragraph at the bottom of 685, if you look halfway in the middle there, let me point you to the sentence I'm looking for. Okay. The sentence that begins at this point, Keandre referenced that this was a gap. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. And there, what does he say about whether or not he had a choice at that point to avoid the offense?
It states he could have simply gone home and avoided the offense.
Okay. And then what does it say there as far as who entered that motel room? Just a few sentences later.
Describes that he busted in the door and saw his co-actors come in behind him.
Okay. So he describes himself as being the one that busted in the door.
Yes.
All right. And then a few sentences later, does he describe how he, in fact, enabled the escape of that group by driving the car and the other people away from the scene after the shooting? Do you see that?
Yes. It says he saw his co-actors running, so he got into the driver's seat and drove the group away from the scene.
Okay. And then finally admits to assisting in stripping and burning the shooter's car in a field.
Yes.
All right. Okay, then going back to, I think we were on your, and I'm not sure, what is the, you tell me what you term it, the letter that you write where you have all your recommendations. What can I call that?
We call it the ITMO, which stands for in the matter of, which is the top of
That's the title.
Document.
That's the title. Okay, great. Okay, so now regarding his psychological evaluation, he had one most recently on July 27th of 2020, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us what, if it's detailed in here and easily accessible, what, if any, diagnosis he had?
He was diagnosed with conduct disorder, adolescent onset, personal history of neglect in childhood, borderline intellectual functioning, cannabis use disorder severe in a controlled environment, sedative, hypnotic, and analoxic, Xanax use disorder, mild in a controlled environment, stimulants, methamphetamine use disorder, mild in a controlled environment, parent-child relational problem, academic problem.
And in fact, and you don't have to turn to it, but you remember reading in the diagnostic study that was submitted with the packet about his substance abuse. He obviously has a substance abuse problem, correct?
Yes,
Okay, dealing with much of what you just detailed there from the psych eval, true?
correct.
Okay. And then what was the psych eval statement as to his display of taking responsibility for the offense?
I recall that she noted that he took responsibility for the offense as well as his behavior in TJJD.
Okay. Do you recall reading that, obviously this occurred July in 2020, but at the beginning of his stay, Mr. Thomas was not as forthcoming with taking responsibility for his offense?
Correct.
Yes, and in fact was, I believe upon his first psych eval, was quite vague about the details of the offense and really didn't see how someone's death, how he had anything to do with it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, within your master file, do you see any mention of, I guess at intake, I should say, let's start it this way. At intake, is there any questions that go to like gang involvement?
That would be a question that they would discuss in the initial intake evaluation as well as with case managers.
Okay. And do you recall seeing initially, and I'm trying to point you to a page, I believe it is page 636 on the bait stamp. Do you recall that Mr. Thomas initially said that he was a Crip, a member of the Crip gang?
Yes.
And that he wanted to leave the gang, and he was just going to tell him that he didn't want to be in a gang anymore. And Miss Oliver says, or Mr. I'm not sure of the gender, I just said that. But Keegan Oliver says, I don't think it's that easy, basically, right?
I recall him stating that he was a Crip and they discussed his intentions when he was released and that he did say that that he would expect them, that he was just going to not associate.
Okay. And then if I can, on that point, page 311, what's bait stamped as 311? You there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the very last paragraph, what does he say there about gang membership and drug use, drug dealing, and high risk of peers and neighborhood? What does he say there, please?
Says triggers for Keandre is being in survival mode when he feels that he will do what he needs to do to take care of himself. Barriers to his recovery include current drug use that occurs in the household and his family being heavily gang related and drug dealing related.
Okay. And in the last sentence, being around?
His family and his peers also serve as a high-risk situation for him. Being around lots of money and his old neighborhood is a high-risk situation as well as triggers for him.
Okay. And just for reference, what is the date of, what is this document we're reading from, and what is the date of this document, please?
It is the AOD, which is Alcohol and Other Drug Treatment Program Discharge Summary, and it was written on January 30th of 2020.
Okay. So several months after he was already admitted, I mean, several months from March of 2019, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. Sorry for the delay. I'm trying to get to my different documents as we work through technology here. Okay. And then, do you see regarding his previous services here at Tarrant County Juvenile Services through his probations that he had received a number of services through the probation department, including some placement, substance abuse treatment facilities, things like that geared towards his substance abuse problem?
Yes.
All right. And do you also see that he had a finding, I believe, within the master files reflected that Dr. Fallis performed a psychological evaluation, mental status evaluation, wherein she found him not fit to proceed?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know if you recall, but generally the IQ that she received and during that evaluation was quite low. I believe somewhere in the 40s. Does that sound familiar?
I believe that.
Okay. And so on that basis, do you recall also reading whether or not Mr. Thomas took a trip to Mejia State School for treatment on that issue?
He did.
All right. And he had about a 90-day stay there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Would you disagree with me if I said it was from October 18 to January 3rd of 19?
No.
Okay. And that's reflected in the diagnostic study, I believe, as well. That's in your master file. All right, then I want to briefly on that issue. There is a psych eval that's done, and I'll turn it to, I'll direct your attention to 692 Bates stamp, being the date of evaluation, April 10th of 2019. So just after his admission to TJJD by examiner Dana Stewardson, I believe. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. And turning then to that page 692 at the top, regarding the trip that he took to Mejia State School, could you please read that paragraph into the record, please, where it begins, "It is important to note"?
Yes. It is important to note that Keandre disclosed that a friend had told him to, quote, fail my IQ test, end quote, so that he could be sent, quote, somewhere else, end quote, to gain some time. He reported he believes failing his IQ test and being sent to Mejia State Supported Living Center is what helped him get his offense lowered to aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon.
Okay.
Keandre,
Then, go ahead. Sorry.
did you want me to continue?
Yes, that last sentence, please.
Keandre reported that he could have passed his IQ testing, but instead stayed in Mejia State Supported Living Center for 3 months because he was able to be out of detention and able to have better accommodations, such as better food, access to Bluetooth and TV, end quote.
All right. You'd agree with me that that's a pretty big manipulation there, you think?
Yes.
Objection. Calls her to speculate. She's not a psychologist.
Assistant, do you want to qualify her, Mr. Blumberg?
No, sir. Not as a psychologist. Ma'am, does it appear from this evaluation that Mr. Thomas admitted to lying in order to gain admission to Mejia State School?
Yes.
And does he admit in this same evaluation that he did so to help him, or he believed that that's what helped him getting his capital murder case lowered to aggravated robbery?
Yes.
And does he further admit that he seemed to enjoy the benefits because he was out of detention and he had access to Bluetooth and television and better food?
Correct.
Okay. All right, let's turn now to his behavior while at TJJD, if we could. And just give me a second to get to the right place, please. Okay. It might be easier to go back to our stages real quick, get that done with, and then we'll move on to the behavior issues, and that's it. So we had mentioned stage 1 lasting until October of 2019 when he promoted to stage 2, correct? So I'm in the treatment summary now, sorry. Ms. Coy, I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And so the promotion from stage 1 to stage 2 took about, if you're looking from April to October, 6 months. Now, what about his promotion from stage 2 to stage 3?
He promoted to stage 3 in January of 2020.
Okay. And then to stage 4?
In June of 2020.
So it looks like his promotion from stage 2 to stage 3 was about 3 months, and then another 6 months from stage 3 to stage 4.
About 5 months.
5 months? Okay, thank you. Going from stage 1 to stage 2 and taking 6 months, is that an abnormal amount of time, or can you speak to that?
Stage 1 is a basic stage, and moving to stage 2 is really kind of memorization of the rules and learning the rules at TJJD. So it generally doesn't take 6 months for a promotion.
Okay. Can you tell us what would account for Mr. Thomas's taking 6 months?
His behavior would have been a stumbling block for him promoting.
Okay. He had more trouble with his behavior towards the middle of his stint at TJJD than he did towards the end. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And then going from stage 2 to stage 3, if I'm doing the math correct, depending on the exact dates, looks like about 3 months. Is that an abnormal amount of time or not?
It's not excessively long, but so yeah, approximately 3 months.
Okay. And then the last 6 months going from 3 to 4, how would you type that? Is that unusual?
I don't know that it's unusual. When you start getting to the higher stages, that requires more work. It requires more internal work on their own part. And so while you might get the earlier stages in a quicker fashion, longer for the higher stages is not unusual. It's also tied to their treatment as well.
Okay. And then going from stage 4 finally to stage yes, looks like from June to October. So another 4 months there, is that right?
Yes.
And is that unusual?
Not necessarily unusual, seeing that he didn't complete his violent offender treatment till August.
Okay. And stage yes, he wouldn't be able to make stage yes or the last stage until he did complete that program, true?
Correct.
And stage yes is just what you call the 5th stage, those persons getting ready to transfer out or age out, or just that last stage, correct?
Where they're preparing their what they would do when they re-enter the community. Yes.
Okay. Transition, that's the word I'm looking for, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so can you tell us briefly, kind of give us a summary of the treatment programs and his success or failure in those programs, please?
So Keandre initially participated in the aggression replacement training group, which is a group to deal with aggression, how to use your coping skills and better deal with things as opposed to acting out aggressively. He started that on August 28th of 2019 and successfully completed that on November 12th of 2019.
Okay. All right. And then, so let me make sure I get your acronyms right here. The ART program, the AOD program, and then the violent offenders program, the VOP program. Any other ones? Any ones that I missed?
No, those are the 3 programs he successfully completed.
And why would he not have been, I know the court is aware and we've heard this before, but why would he not have been in the capital and serious violent offenders program?
That program is it's an extremely intensive program. It's also a very small number of kids that are available to do that program, beds available for them to participate. So when he was reviewed, because he was not the shooter, they had him participate in the second highest level of treatment, not the highest level.
Okay. So that's not unusual. It's not specific to Mr. Thomas. That's just generally how the procedure goes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look regarding that, if we could, at Bates stamp number 593, please.
I have it.
Okay, great. And just for the record, this is a document on page 592 that's labeled C&S VOTP/ART Program Discharge Summary. And can you tell us what the date of this document would have been?
It was signed on September 3rd of 2020.
Okay, so just a short couple of months ago, it looks like. Why would this document have been created?
This is the treatment summary for his completion of the violent offender program.
Okay, and then turning to 593, I'm looking at that last large paragraph at the top of the page.
Yes.
Okay, beginning with the sentence, it's in the middle, sorry, it's kind of buried in the middle there. It begins, Keandre accepted responsibility. You see that?
Yes, for his committing offense of aggravated robbery.
Yes. Okay, it goes on to say he created a detailed apology to his victims, for example, family and community. Do you know what that is? Is that a written letter or is that what is that? A detailed apology?
So as part of the treatment programs, there's going to be different elements that youth will do. Generally, when it's a written apology, it's a letter that the youth writes to the family of the victim, the community, all the victims encompassed in what their offense was.
Okay. Do you know if we have a copy of that?
We do not.
Okay. Then a few sentences later, what does it say? It begins of note there. What does it say as to this evaluator's, I guess, impression of whether or not Keandre recognized his role in the death of Corey Brown?
It states, of note, Keandre did struggle to recognize how his engagement in his committing offense led to the victim being killed by one of his associates. However, through processing with treatment providers and completing additional written work, Keandre appeared to recognize how his actions led to the death of the victim. He indicated this understanding through identifying that although his intent was only to retrieve his phone, he took his associates to the apartment. If he did not go to the apartment, his victim likely would not have been killed. Furthermore, Keandre has continued to note motivation to return to his family and create a positive life for himself with a focus on employment.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, and to his apartment, and what was the last thing you said, Ms. Coy?
To create a positive life for himself with a focus on employment.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm getting back to another page. It's just taking a moment. Okay. Now, if we could turn to the behavior while at TJJD. Can you tell the court, summarize briefly what his number of incidents, number of referrals to your security unit, what that means, and then what specific violations resulted in level 2 hearings?
So Keandre has 32 incidents on record that resulted in 19 referrals to the regulation and safety unit with 7 admissions. 3 of those incidents are self-referrals, which are not behavioral in nature, but when Keandre would take a timeout to be able to collect himself to avoid problems, or if he had gotten bad news from home, it just is a way for kids to have a timeout to collect themselves. He also had 1 level 2 hearing proven not true.
Okay. And then the ones that did go to level 2, the major rule violations, the 6, what were those for?
So he had a level 2 hearing in October of 2019 for fleeing apprehension and participation in a major disruption. He had one in September as well for the same 2 allegations for fleeing apprehension and participation in a major disruption. In August, he had a fighting with no injury of 2019, August of 2019, and in June of 2019, participation in a major disruption.
All right. And those are just the level 2 hearings. Do you recall that there were some level 3 hearings on rule violations that Mr. Thomas was involved in?
Yes, those would be on the on some of the incident reports.
Okay. And not to go over all.
Humbert.
Yep.
Ms. Coy, can you repeat that last thing? We could understand what you said.
Sorry. I said that, yes, that he would have had level 3s on some of the incident reports.
Thank you.
Okay, and I will, in the interest of time here, just summarize some of these, asking you if you agree to the best of your memory and review the master file. If you need the exact pages, let me know to refresh your memory, okay? So as regards to, for instance, some of those that he did not have a level 2 hearing, do you recall one of those being from March 8th of 2020, wherein the youth, Mr. Thomas, had headbutted or swung at another youth and busted his lip. So effectively calling it a fighting resulting in BI.
Yes.
Okay. And there were a couple of incidences involving indecent exposure. True? Do you remember those?
Yes.
Okay. Those went to a level 3 hearing. I believe one was a level 2 as well. And then there was another incident. I don't recall what hearing it resulted in, but do you recall another incident wherein he ran away from the group outside and ended up on the roof of, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the building, the job building, the vocational building. That's what I'm looking for. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that was on September 7th.
Of this year?
Of 2019, sorry.
2019, okay. All right, so regardless of whether it went to a hearing or not, what was his last most recent infraction?
September 27th of 2020.
Okay, for what?
Disruption of a scheduled activity.
Okay. So he did have some infractions in 2020. Are you saying that most of the serious ones occurred in 2019, or what would you say about that? Can you speak to that?
Yes, all of his level 2 hearings occurred in 2019. And his behavior during his first 6 months after admission is where the bulk of his incidents occurred.
Okay. Do you know whether or not he accepted responsibility for any of those at the hearing?
I do not know.
Okay. Okay, now if we could turn to your recommendation. If you would please describe to the court what TJJD's recommendation is for Mr. Thomas going forward.
The recommendation of TJJD is that Keandre be placed on TDCJ parole for the remainder of his sentence.
And how much has he completed of his MPC to this point?
By the time of his birthday on December 10th, he will have completed 30 months of the required 36.
And what was his amount of, I'm just going to use the vernacular, back time from the detention center here in Tarrant County?
He received credit for 294 days.
Yes, ma'am. And that will continue forward regardless if he goes to the parole division or institutional division?
Yes.
And then he has 19 months with TJJD, or does that include the 294?
19 months with us, 30 including the 294.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. I note that on page 6 of your in the matter of letter, you noted that he has a concerning history of probation intervention failure. Was that lifted from or taken from one of the psychological evaluators?
Yes, that's from Dr. Hallmark's evaluation in July.
Okay, the most recent one.
Yes.
Okay. And then if he were to be, if the court did see fit to transfer him to the parole division, then what programs or conditions would you be recommending while on parole?
We would recommend super intensive supervision, which is an ankle monitor, GPS location system that he would have to make a weekly schedule with his parole officer and get it approved before he was allowed to do anything or even leave outside of the house. He would only be allowed out for work, school, counseling, church. It's basically house arrest. Is the way I like to describe it to the youth. We would also recommend substance abuse programming. He would need to continue educational and vocational training, anger management, counseling, and gainful employment.
All right. Is the super intensive supervision program recommendation there, is that something that's recommended to every offender who ages out?
It's not necessarily for every offender who ages out. We do recommend it on every offender such as Keandre who cannot complete their minimum period of confinement.
Thank you. That's what I meant to say. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And then as to the substance abuse programming, the vocational training, any sort of anger management counseling, even to some extent employment, those are also available programs at the institutional division, correct?
I believe so. I don't have knowledge of all their programming at TDC.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Judge, I'm almost done. Can I have just a minute to? Okay, thanks. Ma'am, I did want to notice something that I wanted to just get on the record since this master file is in evidence, and I'll ask you to reference pages, what's Bates stamped 342 through 345, as well as 560 through 564. They involve an individual by the name of Jonathan Thompson. Can you tell us what's going on there that these are stuck in this master file?
Yes, it appears that our master file clerk, when they were filing, doing the filing at the facility, accidentally placed Jonathan Thompson, a few documents from Jonathan Thompson into Keandre Thomas's file.
So those, can we assume that those don't have anything to do with Mr. Thomas?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, Judge. We'll pass the witness.
Mr. Greencross?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, if the court were to put Mr. Thomas on parole, if he were to violate his parole, would the parole division issue what's called a blue warrant or a parole warrant on him?
Yes, they would.
And would he be arrested as quick as possible?
Yes, he would.
And would he be confined until he could have a hearing in front of a hearing officer from the parole division?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of a condition of parole called Special Condition P?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the judge what Special Condition P would entail?
That is the mental health condition, and that would entail any mental health programming that the youth may need, as well as probably Takumi. I can't think of the word. Programming that would help as well.
Okay, you talk about programming. Is that like counseling or direction for somebody with a low IQ?
Yes.
Okay, and is Mr. Thomas an individual that TJJD considers an individual with a low intelligence quotient?
Yes.
Okay, and just from your records, can you give the judge an estimate? What do the psychologists think Mr. Thomas's IQ is?
I believe the last number I saw was a 64.
Okay. In the common vernacular, what would that be called?
I believe that would be.
You cut out, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. That would be below average.
Okay. And do the records that you have here, the TJJD file, indicate if Mr. Thomas's IQ had anything to do with his criminal history?
I don't
I'm gonna
recall
object to
that.
Okay, I'll withdraw the objection.
She didn't recall. All right, ma'am. Are you aware, I don't know if you are or not, that Mr. Thomas, as part of his plea agreement, volunteered to assist the district attorney in prosecution of the adults that were involved in this crime?
I recall seeing that in the stipulation agreement.
Okay. And in the TJDD file here, is there a reference to Mr. Thomas having remorse for these crimes?
Yes.
Okay. And I think earlier you testified initially he didn't accept responsibility when he was put into your facility?
Correct.
So if you could kind of help the judge guide, what did TJJD do to help Mr. Thomas realize that what he did was so wrong?
We would have done that through our treatment programs. We would have done that through counseling with the case manager, as well as his participation in the aggression replacement training program and the violent offender program.
Okay. And do you as a representative of TJJD believe that those programs have succeeded in making Mr. Thomas more aware of what's right and wrong?
Yes, it appears they have.
And from your review of the file, and you've met with Mr. Thomas personally, haven't you?
I met with him when we did his orientation at intake back in April of 2019.
Is this a kid that really had a chance at the time he committed the offense?
I'm going to object to that as speculation and outside this witness's knowledge.
How about just objection as to vague, saying he had a chance?
That'll work too, Judge.
Thank you, Judge. All right, Ms. Coy. Mr. Thomas, was he going to school?
I don't believe he was.
Okay. Was he running around the streets and committing like crimes like shoplifting?
Yes.
Was he using drugs?
Yes.
And was he running around with adults?
Yes.
And were those adults committing crimes?
Yes.
Did he have a stable home life?
I don't recall off the top of my head what I read about his family life right at this moment. Is there anything in particular you were?
Did he have did he go home at night to the same place every night? Did he have 3 meals every day? Did he have family support?
I do not know.
Okay. Did he have a father in his life?
No.
All right. And if you look at page 686, I believe I marked it as. I believe Mr. Boneberg asked about the same page for you.
Yes.
Right. What is this it says on this page about correctional therapy concepts? Can you explain to the judge what did that involve? Why was that addressed with this person?
So those are concepts that we're going to work on the youth with in relation to their committing offenses and their behaviors while they're with us. And they would have talked to him about what his risk areas are and how he's going to avoid them.
Right. And during this treatment that TJJD has provided, has Mr. Thomas succeeded the objectives of the correctional therapy concepts?
Yes, he has.
Okay. And would these same type of therapies and directions still be given to somebody on parole?
He would get continued services through the adult system, through adult parole services that they have, yes.
Right. And I think you already said he would also be under more of a watchful supervision, and the command center in Austin could watch where he is all the time on his leg monitor?
Yes, he'd be on the highest level of supervision at TDC.
Okay. And would he have one parole officer assigned or many?
He would have one primary, he would have one SISP officer, and then there would be other people that would be able to help as far as making sure the counseling, that type of stuff.
So he would actually have one parole officer that could work with him individually, one-on-one?
Yes.
And do you think with somebody like Mr. Thomas, would a parole officer benefit him as a role model for such a young man?
Yes.
All right. Speaking of role models, does Mr. Thomas, based on your review of this file, this 800-some page file, does Mr. Thomas seem to have been influenced by other people while he was committing the instant offense, the aggravated robberies?
I believe I recall reading that a lot of his behaviors were due to negative peer association.
Okay. And if the negative peers weren't in his life, do you think, well, I'll withdraw that question. But if you look at page 686, does it discuss how peer pressure affected Mr. Thomas?
I recall it does. I would need to find the exact line, but.
Okay. And did he learn what the difference is between positive peer pressure and negative peer pressure?
Yes.
Right. And do you believe a one-on-one relationship with a parole officer could provide the positive peer pressure that Keandre needs?
It possibly could, yes.
Are you familiar with the layout of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex?
Not really, no.
Are you familiar with the part of town where Mr. Thomas was living when he committed this offense?
No.
Okay. You've been involved with the juvenile justice system for quite some time, right, ma'am?
Yes.
Do teenagers that get involved in hard drug use like methamphetamine, how do they usually obtain methamphetamine?
Object to the relevance, Judge.
He testified about, Judge, that Mr. Thomas was using methamphetamine before the offense.
Are we disputing that he was using methamphetamine?
No, I'm trying to demonstrate to the court that there is a treatment plan in place to keep Mr. Thomas away from drugs.
Okay, I think the court's aware that I mean, he's under idea is he'd be under supervision by parole. I don't need to get into the drug trade locally.
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, Ms. Coy, why is stage yes such a big deal for a youth in the Juvenile Justice Department?
Well, that's our final stage of programming where youth are working on, they've completed their other criteria treatment programs, and they're actively working on what their reintegration plan and a success plan for return to the community is going to be and look like.
Okay. Can I refer you to page 692 of your report?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm just going to go back a little bit before I get you confused. This whole thing about him failing his IQ test, does it say he was told by a friend to fail his IQ test, or did he come up with this idea on his own?
It states that a friend had told him to fail it.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that Mr. Thomas's education level at even here at age, how old is he now?
Almost 19, 18.
Is second or third grade?
Yes.
And is that a whole lot better than it was before he got to TJJD?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, so he has a long road to hoe, right?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Do you believe continued incarceration will help him get more educated?
I believe that wherever he's at, ultimately it's going to be his choice in what he chooses to do and move forward with his education.
If you know or not, are special education services for mentally challenged people available in the state prison system for adults?
I'm not familiar enough with their programming.
Okay. But they would be available through parole?
Yes, he would still be able to do programming in schools, schooling.
Okay. Try not to say the same things that Mr. Bomer's already asked. Just give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
I had all these questions prepared for you. What goes on in the aggression replacement group? What do you do there with the youth?
So that's a training group that is designed to teach kids skills on how to resolve conflict without reacting aggressively to it. It's, I believe, a 10-week program. There's certain components and trying to think of the word, skills that they're going to go over each week in order to better use coping skills.
Is one of the factors in Mr. Thomas's, the offense he was adjudicated delinquent from, that he was angry that somebody had his phone?
Yes, I believe so.
So is this one of the causes of this offense? Was that addressed in aggression replacement group with Mr. Thomas?
I can't speak to what specifically was. It likely was, and it would have also been addressed in the violent offender programming he did.
Okay. And can you tell Judge Kim, what does the violent offender program involve?
So the violent offender program is a program right now. It's recently gone over to a new programming, which is called Power Source. And in that, it is a curriculum that deals with youth that commit offenses and talks about how to deal with their social and emotional regulation of their skills. It is more specific to include risk-taking behavior and how to avoid that. It also deals with the impact of anger, trauma, family cycles. They talk about substance use as well as taking responsibility. There's a section on empathy as well as gang involvement and problem solving and goal setting.
Right. And specifically, I wanted to ask you about the risk-taking behavior aspect of this program. Are some of the acts that Mr. Thomas was engaged in before he was arrested by the police very risky, like using street drugs, stealing cars, robbing people, burning cars? Is that very risky behavior?
Yes.
And as Mr. Thomas, I guess, lucky enough to have been taught the right way to handle those risks?
That would have been addressed in that treatment program, yes.
Okay. Does the TJJD file show that Mr. Thomas has successfully completed these 4 prescribed programs for him?
Yes, he has.
Okay. And what is the art program? Can you describe that a little more for the judge? We kind of glossed over it.
Oh, the art program it's a program that it's a specific, like I want to say, I think it's a 10-week course where they're going to deal with specific coping skills, learning how to handle social skills, anger management skills, and deal with problems as they arise and dealing with them in a more appropriate way.
And do the records seem to show that Keandre has developed those skills, how to handle those kind of problems in the future?
Yes, I believe I recall reading in the psychological, one of the things that Keandre specifically mentioned was that the aggression replacement training program helped him a lot in dealing with his behavior and how to, he talked about the bubble talk and dealing with problems as opposed to reacting.
And has Mr. Thomas's behavior drastically improved since the time he's been placed in the Youth Commission?
It has.
Okay. And if you were to line up the programs he's gone through with his disciplinary referrals and other problems, would most of those have been grouped up at the start of these programs or after they were over?
The majority of them happened before he began the art treatment and at the beginning of that art treatment program. So they were prior to him getting into the specific treatment programs. And then for the first couple of months, he was in art.
Okay, so do you believe, as a representative of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, that the art program has resulted in Mr. Thomas exhibiting much better behavior while in custody?
It would appear that he uses the techniques that he's learned and his behavior has improved over time.
Over time, has the department been able to lessen the security or the restrictions on Mr. Thomas while he's in your facility?
Well, as he moves up in stages, he would earn more privileges. So he would have more things available the higher stage he is.
And why would he earn more privileges or have more things available? What would be the reason for that?
Well, he's showing that he's working on issues and moving forward, and it's just what comes with the positive reinforcement for the programming.
And over the past, year and a half or so since Mr. Thomas has been in your facility, has Keandre been outside the facility for any purposes? You know?
I don't, let me check. I don't recall anything specifically. Not to my knowledge.
Has he, well, I'm asking, has he been taken for maybe a medical appointment or a counseling appointment outside of the Giddings State School?
It is possible he could have gone to a medical appointment. I don't have anything right in front of me that speaks to that, though.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you kind of a hypothetical thing, but based on your experience in this situations. If Mr. Thomas would have acted up and done something wrong while outside of the facility, for example, at a medical appointment, would that have been reported in this file?
Yes.
Okay. And just so the judge is aware, were one of his disruptions like the students running to get snacks before other students got them?
Yes. And there have been no criminal referrals from TJJD as far as Mr. Thomas is concerned while he's been in your facility? Correct.
Okay. Do sometimes students at like the Giddings State School get criminal referrals for their behavior?
Yes.
Right, and are criminal charges brought in that county?
Yes.
Okay. You testified earlier about Mr. Thomas having a history of probation failures.
Yes.
What do you believe that the programs that Mr. Thomas has gone through, such as the ART program and the Violent Offenders program, has that made it much more easy for Mr. Thomas to comply with a supervision program?
I'll object to the vagueness and possibly ask and answer, Judge.
Yeah, when you say easier, that's, I mean, if you're looking for an answer,
I could restate that, Judge. I could restate that in better English. Is Mr. Thomas more likely now than not to succeed in a supervision program based on his treatment he has gone through at the Texas Juvenile Justice Department?
If he chooses to use the skills that he's been taught through the programming, then he should be able to follow the rules and successfully complete it. He's been taught the skills. Now it's up to him to use them.
And does it seem he has enough IQ to use those skills?
I'll object to speculation.
I mean, if you want, do you want a qualifier?
I'll do it this way, Your Honor. Do you believe, in your professional opinion, as a representative of the Juvenile Justice Department, Mr. Thomas has the ability to use the skills he's learned in your program in the real world?
Yes, the agency does believe that.
And Mr. Thomas, in one of his things he wanted to do, I believe, he said he wanted to focus on work or employment. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a far cry goal from what his life was before he was arrested on this offense?
Yes.
Okay. And do Mr. Thomas seem to have a similar life to the majority of 16-year-olds, or much different?
I'm going to object to that, Judge. It's vague again. Majority of 16-year-olds.
Across the country, state, world?
I'm going to rephrase it.
Okay.
Ms. Coy, do most 16-year-olds not go to school on a regular basis?
No.
Again, that's vague. Are we talking worldwide, in India, Colombia?
In the United States, Your Honor.
If she's qualified as an educational expert, we can go there, but I think Mr. Boomberg has a point.
Okay, I'll move on. Has Mr. Thomas been in contact with his mother during his stay at the Giddings State School?
Yes.
Okay. Has she participated in any of the programs?
She has participated in the virtual visitation program that we have right now due to the pandemic, as well as talking to case managers.
Okay. I'm going to pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Boomberg, redirect.
I have none, Judge.
All right, thank you. Please call your next witness.
Yes, we'd briefly call Miss Vanessa Brown.
So it's been about an hour and a half. I'd like to, as much as I want to plug through, I try to give my court reporter a break if we can. So let's just take just for her fingers to rest. Let's go ahead and take just like a 5-minute recess or something, just for water or restroom or something, okay? So how about 10 minutes? How about come back at 3:15?
Great.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I just need a drink of water.
Not done with you yet?
Huh?
Not done with you yet?
No, sir. Trying to see if they're gonna give me parole to send me to TC.
They've been on parole before?
Nah, just probation.
What are they doing now, discussing it or?
I think they's gonna take a break. I think that's probably what they're gonna do. I hope they give me parole.
Maybe parole, but friends saying that was.
Yeah, that's what they were looking at right there. But like else, I was going through TYC. I told them that I was young, that I was growing up. I really didn't know what, like I knew what was going on. Capital murder, 5 counts of aggravated robbery, terroristic threat. But I beat the capital murder and beat the terroristic threat. And then they gave me 5 counts of aggravated robbery. 15 years, yeah. told him as I was going through my treatment, I learned that when I was younger, a lot of adults used to take advantage of me, stuff like that.
You got funny love it. Thank you. They just take a break, or they discuss what they took a break. Well, I got to protest like tomorrow. Well, we protesting now. Yeah, that's Oh, no, it's about truck thing. Yes, truck route. I'll be down there in the spirit. Know where I'll be, the old courthouse. It's that audio. That's a good thing.
Any transition stuff? Was it a primary win or a drought? You don't take that personal. We're judges, people don't care about us.
No.
But all right. So now we're waiting on Ms. Thomas. I think we'll still need Ms. Coy as a representative from the department. Here we are. Okay. Well, if she elects not to be here, then she elects not to be here. All right. We're back on the record. Hey, Mr. Boneberg, your next witness.
Yes, sir. State would call Miss Vanessa Brown, please.
All right. Brown, hello. If you can raise your right hand for me.
Other right, no.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial, that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Thank you. You may lower your hand. Mr. Boneberg, please proceed.
Thank you. Ma'am, please tell the court your full name, especially for the record.
Vanessa Marie Brown.
Okay. Ms. Brown, how are you related to the victim, Corey Brown?
He's my brother.
Okay. Corey was the individual killed back in March of 2018. The underlying offense that Mr. Thomas has been adjudicated for. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Corey, at the time of his death, I believe, was around 40 years old. Is that right?
37.
37. Thank you for correcting me. There you go. 37. You got it. Okay. Do me a favor and tell the court a little bit about Corey. What kind of person was he like?
My brother is he is an amazing individual. I don't know anybody that met him that didn't like him, honestly. Has this effervescent, like bubbly personality, like even when he's like super stressed, he like tries to make you laugh, and he was a great dad to his four children. And both of his sons are like, he was their best friend, but he was my best friend first. I have this picture that I want to show you guys. This is us together. We were like super close, and my dad used to joke to the family, like, they're like peas and carrots, like Forrest Gump, which happened to be Corey's favorite movie. And like, we always felt like we would just be together forever. Like, it didn't matter if anybody else was around. It was just gonna be us. And he was so smart. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you about, no, it's okay. I thank you for telling us that. You said he had 4 kids, and can you tell us what are the age ranges of his kids?
He has a 21-year-old son. He just turned 21 a few weeks ago. He has a 19, he just turned 19 last week, another son who is in college right now, full scholarship for track. And he has a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter.
Okay. And how many siblings does Mr. Brown have?
It was just me.
Okay. Do you have any siblings, other siblings on your side, or no? Was Corey it?
Yep, it was just us.
Okay. Now, way back in March of 2019, I say way back, just a year and a half ago, 19 months ago, right? You also gave a statement to the court back when Mr. Thomas was adjudicated, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good deal. And you recall it was the same judge, Judge Kim here, correct?
Yes, I thought his hair was longer.
Okay. Tell us how, just since you've already spoken to Judge Kim about that back in March of 2019, tell us going forward from March of 2019 till now, how has this offense and Mr. Thomas's actions, along with his co-defendants, impacted your life and your family's life?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that Corey's youngest son, my nephew, graduated from high school without his dad. Had prom without his dad, which, you know, obviously you want your parents there. Like, this is what you worked for. So that was really hard. You know, my oldest nephew, again, you know, he's 21, but like, you never stop needing your parent. And for my nieces, like, most of my most amazing memories of childhood are me dancing with my dad, playing with my dad, being on his shoulders. And they will never have that again. At 5 and 7, they have to go the rest of their lives without their dad. And that is horrible. And my dad got married last month. And we had an empty chair for my brother. And I lost my best friend. I miss him every day, all day, every day for the last 2 years. And there's no reprieve for me.
Yeah. Was Corey involved in his children's lives?
Absolutely. I have pictures and videos of him. One of my nephews played the violin and ran track and played basketball. Like, he was there.
Okay.
All the time, everything. He has, you know, thank God we have pictures of, you know, him holding one of his daughters. Just only 2 pictures though, you know, like, because she was only 3. So like, that's all she has. She'll have of her dad for the rest of her life. And my 7-year-old niece, you know, we have pictures of him, you know, walking with her and stuff like that. But like, he won't be able to take her, you know, get her ready for prom or walk her down the aisle. Like, this is horrible.
Let me ask you, what you were also, I'm going to ask you another question, okay?
I'm ready. I'm okay.
Okay. You were also present for, or you tell us, were you present for the individuals, the adult co-defendants, when they pled to their cases?
Yes.
Okay. And they're all serving prison time right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to see happen in Mr. Thomas's situation?
This is difficult because my brother in his younger days made a really stupid mistake and somebody forgave him and tried to give him a shot at life. And a part of me really just wants Keandre to have an opportunity to pay it forward that he had a chance. But then when I hear that he was still like trying to manipulate the system, like, my brother lost his life, there is no justice for that. You're just getting time. Like, we don't get time with my brother after you serve whatever. And seeing your face right now, I'm just like, I couldn't even look in the mirror if I'd done what you did. So I don't understand how you're calm. I don't understand how you still try to manipulate it like, oh, this wasn't your fault. So I want you to have a chance to have a life, which is what I told you before. But I expect you, if Judge Kim decides to be your angel of mercy today, to do better and be better. I meant it last year and I mean it today.
Yes, ma'am.
If I hear about you going back to jail, may heaven help you.
Ma'am, Ms. Brown, let me ask you, you understand that even if Judge Kim were to send him to the institutional division to serve prison time in the adult system, that eventually his sentence would be discharged and he'd be released. He doesn't have like a life sentence. You understand?
No,
Okay.
I know.
Okay. And so he may get that effort at a later time, correct?
Yes, which is actually what I prefer.
Okay. Now, we spoke earlier yesterday. I wanted to ask you about that. And you had told me at one point that, now obviously that's before you've heard the testimony today of Ms. Coy. You had told me that you thought you wanted to see Mr. Thomas paroled. Do you feel differently or do you want to qualify that at all?
I want him to have a chance like my brother had. I do.
And just to clarify, in your brother's situation, no one died, correctly?
No one died, exactly.
Okay.
Like, you know, my dad is like, he should serve all of his time in jail. Like, I have to be honest and say that right now. Like, my dad wants him to serve all of his time. But like I said, he was 16 when it happened. I'm just hoping that the 19-year-old version of him is smarter.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Brown. We'll pass the witness, Judge.
Thank you.
Green. Mr. Green.
It keeps muting itself. Sorry. Ma'am, we talked about a year ago, you remember? At the sentencing hearing, and we're really sorry for your loss, I am. But given the fact, Keandre wasn't the one that actually killed your brother, right?
I'm sorry. I hold all of them equally responsible.
I understand, ma'am. And this is kind of a sensitive issue, but if you know or not, are there an inordinate amount of African-American males in prison?
Are you really asking me? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, there is.
Okay. And is Keandre an African-American male?
He is.
And what do you attribute, if you know, what do you think the cause of that many young men being in prison of that certain race?
I agree that it's social-economical differences and I mean discrepancies and dysfunction, but I'm a college degreed, educated Black woman that grew up in the same situation that he did, FYI.
Yes, ma'am. And after listening to Ms. Coy, do you think maybe there's a plan to stop Mr. Thomas from being one of those statistics?
I didn't hear about a plan going forward for his life, so I can't answer that. I did hear her say that he's been given the tools. I did not hear anybody say that the plan for him, whether he's paroled or not, being implemented.
All right. What would you as Mr. Brown's sister, what would you want to see Mr. Thomas do if he got paroled? What would he do to make amends to society?
I would absolutely love to hear that he, completed a drug substance abuse program. I would love to hear that, actually, I'm a mental health professional myself, so I would love to know that he got some mental health help. I would love to hear that he was employed. I would love to hear that he was helping other people who grew up in his neighborhood or a neighborhood similar to his, being a mentor to them through one of those programs as well. Absolutely getting his GED or some form of education, vocational education. I would love to see those things happen.
Okay, pass the witness.
Bumberg, redirect.
None, Your Honor.
Please call your next witness.
We have no further witnesses. We'd rest at the hearing.
All right, Mr. Green.
I'd call Jeanette Thomas if she's listening.
Thomas, are you here? Did you issue a subpoena for Ms. Thomas, Mr. Green?
No, she voluntarily appeared. I don't see her on there.
Please call your next witness.
May I have a breakout room with my client for 1 minute, Your Honor?
You can, if you'd like to take the time also to call Ms. Thomas to see if she's available by phone.
Yes, Your Honor, I was
I certainly
planning
don't
on it.
mind if you do that.
Thanks, Judge.
All right, Deputy, I'm creating a breakout room and sending the invitation. If you don't mind accepting that on behalf of Mr. Thomas, I would appreciate it. Mr. Green, would you like me to add Ms. Thomas to the invitation as well?
That's fine, Your Honor.
I can do that. All right. Invitations are sent. Thank you. All right, so the remaining people will so the reporter's not having to work, will officially be in recess until they return.
I'm down this wall. Stretch.
Mr. Green, were you able to get a hold of Ms. Thomas?
No, I wasn't, Your Honor.
I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Blumberg, Ms. Coy, are y'all back? There's Ms. Coy. Ms. Blumberg. All right, so we're back on the record. Mr. Green, please call your next witness.
Mr. Keandre Thomas wants to address the judge.
All right, Mr. Thomas, if you can raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give at this cause currently at trial that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I need a yes or a no.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Green, please proceed.
Thank you. Keandre, you tell the judge your name?
Keandre Demond Thomas.
All right. Was getting committed to the Juvenile Justice Department a good thing or a bad thing for you?
It was a good thing because I'm glad that he sent me over there because when I was out.
Hold on. Debbie, do you mind if this inmate removes his mask? We're having difficulty hearing him.
Yes, that's fine, sir.
All right, thank you.
Well, I'm glad that you kind of sent me to TJJD because when I was in the free, a lot of adults was taking advantage of me and peer pressuring me to do what I didn't want to do. And I didn't have no dad growing up. And I always wanted to know, like, where was my dad at? And I ain't really had no dad growing up. And as I was going through my treatments, I learned how to deal with difficult situations. And when I got out of treatment and I was getting my stages, I was mentoring like suicidal kids that was trying to kill themselves there. I was mentoring them. And I did get both trades and vocational. And I'm willing to get out and stay on the right track and stay with my mama and move out the neighborhood.
Okay, well, let's talk about that last thing you said. What do you mean move out of the neighborhood? What is the family's plan for you?
To go back to school, get my GED, and get trades. But I got my trades and vocational is in wood shop, but I want to do welding.
Okay, and where are you moving? What neighborhood?
Moving to Crowley. It's like far away from the neighborhood that I was in.
Okay, is Crowley like a suburb?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And will you be around the same people that are involved in gangs and drugs there?
No, sir.
All right. And did we talk about how you plan to handle if somebody like has some weed or some pills? How are you going to handle that?
Walk away and say no.
Okay, and where did you learn that?
In ART and power source.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We're having trouble understanding. ART and what?
Power source. Power source.
Thank you.
And could you have made that decision? Did you know to make that decision before the police arrested you on this charge?
No, sir.
Okay. How do you explain your behavior in telling the psychologist that somebody told you to fail the IQ test so you could go to Mahia as opposed to juvenile?
At the time, I really didn't know what was going on. And then I was talking to them on the phone. They was like, yeah, feel it. And then I was like, I really don't know what's going on. So I went in there and then I played like I ain't know what to do. Like I played like I ain't know what to do. That's what they were telling me to do. But as I realized that I was going through my treatments and that I was getting counseling, as the counseling was talking to me, like, you don't got to listen to adults. Like I can always go and tell somebody. Like I don't got to tell them that I'm going to tell somebody, but I can always go and tell my mama or my granny or my older brother or something. But at the time, as I was going through my treatments, I realized that what they was doing to me and that they didn't care at the end. So I started expressing myself, like telling them that they told me to fail my IQ, and I started expressing myself more, and I feel bad at the end.
Okay. And who is they? Who told you to do this?
One of my homeboys, but he had got locked up or whatever. And then as I was talking to my mama was telling me like, they not right for you. Like you need to stay on track. Like if they give you another chance to go out here, you need to do what you need to do. And I was talking to her and she was like telling people everything you know and how you feel and stuff.
All right. And are these skills you learned in TJJD or did you come up with this on your own?
I learned these in TJJD.
Okay. And tell the judge, what have you done as far as going to school? Because you weren't going to school before all this happened, were you?
No, sir.
When's the last time you actually went to school?
And the free was like the 6th grade.
Okay. And so have you been going to school since you've been locked up?
Yes, sir.
Did you go to school in juvenile?
Yes, sir.
And did you go to school in TJJD?
Yes, sir.
And did you go to school in Mahia?
Yes, sir.
And how much have you learned in the past few years?
I learned how to go to school and stay focused on my work and then get done with my work. And if I need to talk, to ask the teacher after I get done with my work, or to ask the teacher if I could have some free time. Or I let the staff know, like if I'm feeling down or something, like, can I have a self-referral? Like that's to go like to security, but like during the time I learned how to ask for help if I need help, if I'm struggling with something.
Right. How about your numbers? Do you know how to add and subtract now?
A little bit. I don't really know how to add like that.
Okay. Have the people at TJJD been helping you with that problem?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how about your letters? Do you know how to write your name now and stuff?
Yes, sir.
And can you write sentences?
Yes, sir.
And can you communicate, like, can you talk to the judge and make sense now?
Yes, sir.
All right. When all this first started, did you have a hard time understanding what was going on?
Yes, sir.
And was that because you weren't going to school or something else?
It was because I wasn't going to school and I really didn't know like what a lot of big words mean.
And you know a lot of those words now?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you talked about your vocation, the wood shop school. Where'd you go to wood shop school at?
At TJJD. I was supposed to get my OSHA, but I couldn't get my OSHA yet. But if I go back to Giddings, I would be able to get my OSHA sometime like at the end of this month or before I parole home. But I got my certificates in vocational, like I'm done. But the only thing I got to do is go in there and do projects now.
Okay, and what does that mean, certificates in vocational? What does that mean in the real world, in the free world?
I mean, like I'm certified to do the job. Like they would hire me before they hire somebody else that don't have certificate.
Okay. And if Judge Kim is to see fit to let you parole, what would your plan be there? What would you do the first day you got out?
My plan is to spend time with my family. And then during that week, I'm spending time with my family. I will go look for a Amazon warehouse job or a Walmart warehouse job. And then as I'm going through that, I will get my OSHA card and I go try to do welding.
Okay. All right. And how about, were you listening when Ms. Coy was testifying about parole?
Yes, sir.
What if they slapped a leg monitor on you? Would you keep that thing on and report as required?
Yes, sir. And
I realize that.
And I want like classes to go to keep me like on track. I want like classes to go to like to help me still.
Okay. And how do you plan to make amends? I mean, Miss Brown's here. She lost her brother, right, because of all this, right?
Yes, sir.
How do you plan to make amends to everybody for this? What are you going to do?
I'm going to stop hanging around the wrong crowd, and I'm going to find new peers, and I'm going to start back going to school, and I'm going to go to credit recovery so I can get my credits faster and get my high school diploma.
Okay. Now, is it true, did you agree to help the district attorney prosecute the other people in this case?
Yes, sir.
And did you sit down with a bunch of the prosecutors in a little room with me? And did you tell them everything you knew?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell them where a gun was?
Yes, sir.
And did you tell them where they could find that gun?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was that your gun or somebody else's?
Someone else.
And tell the judge, what is your plan? What if, let's say, you get out in the free world and you get a job at some warehouse, okay? And there's a bad dude there and he's trying to get you involved. Let's go after work and he wants to go drinking or whatever, or go messing around. What are you going to do when you have that freedom to do that?
Tell him I'm on parole. I can't do that. I got to walk away.
Is that the only reason you can't do that, because you're on parole, or another reason?
No, sir. That's another reason to keep me on track.
Okay. And what does on track mean?
Going to job, report every week, and staying focused on what I got to do and to take care of my family.
All right. And what if the parole board decides just to let you off parole? What are you going to do when they don't have that monitor on you anymore and they're watching you?
I would stay in contact with my family more and stay out the streets.
Okay. Now, did you hear those things about saying that there's people in your life that are involved in drugs and gangs? You remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Specifically Crips. You know what Crips are?
Yes, sir.
What is a Crip?
I was never like a Crip. I was just like, people would always try to get me to like be a Crip, like as in like they try to say I was a gang affiliated.
Okay. And what are you going to do to stay away from such things as Crips?
Move to a different neighborhood and tell them that I ain't got time to be doing that no more. Like I already did that in my past.
All right. I don't know if you could recount this, but have we talked about a place called the Can Academy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell the judge, what do you know about that Can Academy?
Well, I know that you can get your credits faster and you can graduate faster instead of going to a regular school. So I can get help in credit recovery.
And what else do they do there at the Can Academy?
They help you get your GED too.
Okay. So
it's a half a day of school.
And what do you do the other half a day?
Huh?
What do you do with the rest of your day when you go to the Can Academy?
I will go to school. And then after I leave from school, I would go to work, wherever I get a job at.
Okay. What do you think the court should do to you today? If you were the judge, what would you do to Keandre?
I would make up my decision on whether I should parole him home or not.
Okay. And why would you as the judge do that?
To see if he learned anything while he was in TJJD.
Okay. And what else haven't you told this judge here, Judge Kim, about what have you not learned in TJJD? Let's put it that way.
What you kind of mean? Like, what have I not learned?
Okay, let's say it a different way, Kendra. Let's say, why does the judge have to believe you've learned all these things in TJJD? Why can't he just trust you on your own to put you out on parole?
Because before I was doing stuff to make him not believe me, but now as I came to TJJD, I did what I was supposed to do to make him believe me, to show him that I improved and I'm trying to do right.
Okay. When you first were arrested by the police, do you remember that?
No, sir.
Okay, why don't you remember it?
Because at the time, it was like a long time ago and I was on drugs at the time.
Okay. And at the time, were you a boy or a man?
A boy,
And what are you now?
a man.
And do you remember everything that's happened since you've been in custody now?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do you think you're better or worse?
Better,
All right. Do you think you're older or younger?
older,
Do you think you're more responsible or less responsible?
more responsible.
All right. Pass the witness.
Mr. Blumberg, cross.
Mr. Thomas, you've always had a very supportive mother, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you've had family around you that have been supportive with you in your past, true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your siblings, they're supportive of you and you in the past, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So all those things were in place before you decided to take Corey Brown's life, or at least to aid in the death of Corey Brown, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so none of that's changed, correct?
No, sir.
All right. And tell us, your father is not in your life, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Hasn't been since he was incarcerated, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Like
And
my father, he was never in my life, but like I seen him like a couple of times, and then that was it.
yes, sir. And that was his choice, right? He made his own bad decisions, and
Yes,
he's
sir.
not in your life, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You realize you did the same thing by your actions, you and your co-defendants' actions that day in March of 2018, and made Corey's 4 kids fatherless. Do you realize that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But that's your choice, right? That was your choice. Corey had no say in whether or not his life was taken. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so do you think that's fair? It's not fair, is it?
No, sir.
You have done 30 months out of 36-month minimum period of confinement. You heard Ms. Coy talk about that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have done less than the minimum that's required for this offense. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that's fair
No,
to Miss Brown?
No, sir.
Do you think that that's fair to Mr. Brown, his father, Corey's father?
No, sir.
All right. Because you understand it's not just Miss Brown that lost her brother, but they lost a son, they lost a father, lost an uncle, they lost more than just a brother. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
You did have some trouble owning up to your role in the offense at the beginning of your commitment at TJJD. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
And even as soon as September of 2020, you told an evaluator, you heard me ask Ms. Coy, you said you really didn't see how your actions that day led to Corey's death, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was just a couple of months ago. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
All right, but here we are sitting in court and the judge is fixing to decide whether to send you to prison, adult prison, or to parole you out. And suddenly everything's just peachy and flowers. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Objection argumentative.
Stand.
It's now at this hearing that you want to appear to be responsible and a man and an adult, and TJJD fixed you. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
Your mother raised you, and I believe your grandmother too. Is that right, or auntie?
Yes, sir. My grandma.
Okay. They raised you, taught you to be respectful, right from wrong, those kind of things, right?
Yes, sir.
Yet you chose to get involved, as unfortunately many do, unfortunately get involved with drugs, right? At an early age.
Yes, sir.
Some of them pretty heavy drugs, methamphetamine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you started associating with people that carried weapons, that were involved in the drug trade, things like that, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you knew that day in March of 2018, before you knocked on that door and busted into that motel room where Corey was, you knew that the people you were with were carrying guns, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
And yet you chose to make that choice that day, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, you said as far as going to Mejia and all of that situation, that somebody told you to lie about that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You realize that you not only lied to Mejia, but you lied to this court, this very judge right now. You lied to him. You know that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was just 2 years ago. You lied to him. Actually, it was, October of 18 is when you went there. 2 years ago, you lied to this court just to get something for yourself. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
You then, you heard me ask Ms. Coy about your admissions about being a Crip, and your, I think the way you termed it was your family was heavily into the drug trade and gangs. Was that not true? Or is TJJD lying about that? Is Ms. Coy lying about what was in the records?
No, she not lying, but I was never a Crip. I was just affiliated, like I just communicate with them. But at the same time, not all my family, just on my daddy's side.
So when they say that that's what you said in the records, is that true or not true now?
That's true.
All right. Do you think that from Corey Brown's family perspective, that you should continue to serve a prison sentence that is more than just the minimum, less than the minimum of what you're to serve? Do you see what I'm asking?
Not really.
Okay. We said earlier that you have not yet served even the minimum sentence of 36 months. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think that you owe at least that much to their family?
Yes, sir.
Don't you think that you should continue to fulfill your sentence in prison? I mean, just if you feel any remorse for Corey's family?
Yes, sir.
We'll pass the witness, Judge.
Mr. Green?
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, what is your understanding of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department? Is it prison or is it something else?
It's something else, because I realized that I had to own up to what I did and take responsibilities and accept consequences.
Right. Where you're sitting right now in that hallway, you're on video, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that a juvenile facility or is that an adult prison?
An adult.
Okay, you're in the county jail right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do they have programs there, and are they taking you to school and helping you with stuff, or do you just sit in a cell?
I'm just sitting in the cell.
Okay. And where you were at the Giddings State School, did you have programs, and did they help you with your problems and teach you what's right and wrong?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know a big word now called rehabilitation?
Not really, but I heard of it.
Okay, where'd you hear that word?
In Giddings.
In Giddings?
Yes, sir.
All right. I pass the witness.
Romberg, recross.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just one question to clarify for the record. Mr. Thomas, do you know what happened to your mother? We see the letter J on the screen here. Do you know if she chose not to be here for the rest of the hearing or what?
No, sir.
You don't know?
No, sir. I haven't talked to my mama since I've been in here.
Okay, that was it, Judge. Thank you.
We redirect, Mr. Romberg. I'm Mr. Green.
Mr. Thomas, was your mother appearing on the screen earlier in the hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, thank you. Mr. Green, please call your next witness.
Arrest, Your Honor.
Closing arguments?
Mr. Will waive opening, reserve right to close.
Mr. Green, closing?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Thomas believes you should follow the recommendation of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department through its representative. We'd ask that you do review these 800 pages of records. They're more telling than just a few snippets you've heard during this hearing. Mr. Thomas should be put out on parole as quickly as possible. He entered the program, actually the juvenile program, way back when this offense first started in the Tarrant County juvenile justice system. Was detained for a long time. He spent about 3 years in custody. I'd argue to you that Texas Juvenile Justice Department, and in fact the Tarrant County juvenile detention, is not a prison or a confinement situation. It is designed with the policy by our leaders to rehabilitate kids and take kids who have done some very bad things and turn them into productive adults. That's why we're under the Texas Family Code, and he's not convicted of a felony. He's not a convicted criminal. He got a 15-year sentence from the court, which was a just sentence, but he has that opportunity at this time to show the court that he is ready to move on to the next stage of this rehabilitation. And it's not going to happen, as you know, in the state penitentiary. He's going to sit there probably for 4 or 5 more years, and they'll decide to parole him, but he won't get any services and stuff. As Ms. Coy has testified, he's going to get to the juvenile parole and fallen through then to adult parole. He'll probably get, which he testified as special condition P, due to his level of intellect, where he'll get special treatment and special help, get along with life. He's going to be slapped with a leg monitor that's not the kind that's hooked into a phone. This thing's going to be watching him from a satellite, and they'll be able to follow him anywhere he goes, and they'll know just what he's doing. He'll only be allowed to be at work, in school, treatment, or church. And he'll have to have that schedule approved by a parole officer who work one-on-one. You heard testimony, not just from Mr. Thomas, who didn't have a father, but from Ms. Brown, who did, and how her father was positive impact in her life. And Ms. Coy told you that this parole officer could actually function as a role mentor for this young man, to help him keep on the straight and narrow, and have an adult that he can work with and be that good peer pressure, which does show up in the 800 some pages of these juvenile justice reports, that there is a difference between negative peer pressure and positive peer pressure. And Mr. Thomas has that ability to have that positive peer pressure through this arrangement. His plan to move to the city of Crowley, as you know, that's a suburb of Fort Worth. It is not in the part of town. If you look at our original records in this court, Judge, Mr. Thomas is running around the area that I guess we call, maybe derogatorily, but stop 6. It's the wrong part of town for a young man without any guidance to be in. And he got himself into that kind of trouble. He got with adults that were doing drugs, carrying guns, stealing cars, and they ended up killing this poor man. And Mr. Thomas has accepted now, he has learned his cognitive thinking that he was part of this murder, and that he committed the robbery. He stole stuff. And he understands it now. He didn't understand it before, and it took several years of the juvenile authorities working in his brain and his behavior to get him to that point. Because as you see, he has a second degree, maybe third degree education. He doesn't know his numbers. He really doesn't know his letters very well. But the records show that his education has drastically improved since he's been put in the juvenile system. And another thing is he's very susceptible to being influenced by bad influences. And as you're aware, Judge, I know you were a criminal defense lawyer before you took the bench, so you know that the prison is full of bad influences. He's going to be in there with the really bad dudes. The grown-ups are going to be bigger and stronger than he is, or people his age that are going to take advantage of his intellect and put him into a path of no redemption. He will be a full-time criminal by the time he leaves the prison. And if he's allowed to go through the juvenile parole and then into adult parole, he has that chance to become a productive citizen. He's told you we have a plan to go to the CAN Academy and get our diploma or GED. I know you're aware of the CAN Academy's program where you have to work half a day and go to school half a day. So he's not running around playing. It's a very positive program. Yet again, more positive role models in his life there. So we'd ask that you follow the Juvenile Justice Department's recommendation. The recommendation is to put him out on parole under those very strict circumstances so he can make his amend to society as a productive member of society, as opposed to just basically rotting in a cell doing time. Because as you know, the purpose of the Juvenile Justice Department and juvenile law totally is not punishment and serving time. It's to give these young men and women time to get their stuff straight, and if they can, succeed. And Mr. Thomas has fallen into that groove of he will be a successful citizen if he's given that opportunity. Thank you, Judge.
Mr. Broberg?
Thank you, Judge. May it please the court. You know, Judge, he'll have that chance. He'll have that chance down the road. Right now, all we're asking for is for some fairness, that he serve and continue to serve time in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Corrections. He has not even completed his minimum. A man's life was lost here violently as he lay in that bed of that hotel room, and single-handedly through actions of this respondent and his co-defendants, orphaned his 4 kids, lost Ms. Brown's brother, Mr. Brown's son. His actions demand more accountability than just 30 months out of a 15-year sentence. And we'd ask that he be transferred to the institutional division of the Texas Department of Corrections. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir.
This court, having considered all the competent evidence provided at this hearing, and having considered the experiences and character of you before and after commitment to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, the nature of the penal offense that you were found to have committed, and the manner in which the offense was committed, the abilities of you to contribute to society, the protection of the victim of the offense or any member of the victim's family, the recommendations of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, County Juvenile Board, Local Juvenile Probation Department, and prosecuting attorney, the best interest of the person, and any other factor relevant to the issue to be decided. There's a couple things I want to say to you. Bear with me. I've read all the pages in this master files, 2 binders full. We're approaching 800 pages. I read every single page. I know every single infraction, every single 225 you received while you're at TJJD. I know the social history back when we first adjudicated you here in Tarrant County. I've gone through everything. The one thing that's very clear is that You get caught into bad situations because of your peers, because of the people that you affiliate with.
Yes, sir.
One thing about you going forward in life is you need to recognize that you have to be extra careful about who you hang out with. Other people might be able to take a situation at the last minute stop and make a good call. You do not have that ability. I see this over and over again where you start something and you can't stop. You can't tap the brakes. You keep on going. I'm not saying that you're not a good person because of that. What I'm saying is that is just a skill you do not have that other people do. And that is why it is especially important for you to stay away from the people who break the rules and break the law. When I see your 225 forms, your violations at TJJD, it seems very consistently that there's other people egging you on, or you're part of a bigger group that's making this happen. Mr. Thomas, you have to understand that you are not able, when other people start doing things, you are not able to stop it. You're not able to walk away. You have to stop getting there in the first place. Otherwise, they're just going to drag you down. I really want you to think about how your life was without your father. I know Mr. Green was talking about this. You have to understand that now there are 4 more people in this world who have to live their life without growing up without a father. Actually, that's your fault. You know, as you grow older, you need to think about that since this was your fault. If you owe anyone, any of these victims, whether it's Vanessa, her father, Corey's kids, who don't have a father anymore, you owe them to stay clean. You owe them to stay off the streets. You owe them to stay away from drugs and thugs. I want to let you know that just moving to Crowley is not going to fix the problem. There will be drugs and criminals any place you move to. I don't care where you go, the opportunities will be there. What will fix things is choosing to walk away. You owe Vanessa, you owe Corey Brown's kids, you owe Corey Brown this. You should never forget his name. I'm going to let you know that is what ultimately will make amends with his kids and with his sister and his father, is that spending the rest of your life doing right is how you make things right. So considering the evidence presented, the court will order the return of the child back to the custody of the Texas Juvenile Justice Department with approval for release into the community under supervision. All right, that, Mr. Thomas, it means I am granting you parole. I want to say is I know you've been really anxious and nervous about this. Every child has. I understand there's a reputation at TJJD that I'm a very tough judge. And I know many kids do come back from their parole hearings without approval. And the kids I do not give parole to, I do not leave sleepover. What I've looked at your history is I see you've started in a difficult situation, and I expected that. Because there's a reason why we sent you to TJJD, because you couldn't cut it under supervision. What I look for is whether you transformed yourself, whether you improved yourself, whether you grew, and you grew into a person who can make good decisions in our community back here in Tarrant County. And I saw that pattern. I saw you becoming a leader and showing other kids how to do right, how to explain to them that they're not doing the right thing. This may have been a result of other kids coming back and you realizing Judge Kim will send you to TJJD, or it could have been the natural growing process. Regardless, the end result is you're understanding right from wrong and you're pushing other people to do right. And that is what is important to me. I know you were nervous today and anxious, not knowing what will happen. The reality is, whether you sit in front of a judge ever again in the future is purely up to you. It's your decision going back to who you're going to affiliate with. I guarantee if you go back and you're hanging out with people who even smoke weed, as minor as that may seem, there are people that are breaking the law. You have to understand when you break the law, worse things happen. When you go in and you take a cell phone for $25, bad things happen. When you affiliate with people that are willing to have guns and use them, bad things happen. That is where you have to cut things off. You can't wait to the last minute and say, I'm going to jump out when things get bad. You just don't even start down that path. Mr. Thomas, I want to let you know, this decision is not me showing you mercy. This decision is based on your actions, your choices, and your decisions. On parole and after, your actions, your choices, and your decisions will decide and determine if you get your parole revoked and whether you go to prison or not. Do not ever put yourself in a position to hope for a judge to be merciful on you again. You are the owner of your future. Don't give up your power of your own future. Ms. Brown, I do want to address you. I do remember you from the disposition hearing last year. I want to let you know that as a judge, I cannot give you Corey back. I cannot give you comfort or peace. I can only pray with my family for God to grant you and your family peace. As I interpret the law, I do not believe TDC or prison can help rehabilitate this young man. TDC would simply be punishment, and the law in Texas specifically tells me that we are not to punish children, despite how injured or how unjust that may seem to both you and me. This is about rehabilitation. Keandre has shown me that he has taken the steps toward rehabilitation and the factors that I must consider, and TDC would not be appropriate for this, despite the outcome of the choices that he made. That will be the order of the court. Before we leave, Corey, I want to read something to you, and I'm reading this now after I've made my decision and written the entry, just so you understand. I did not take this necessarily into my decision, but I just want to read this to you. My brother meant the world to me. He was my everything. I literally bought my first house to make sure he had a place to live. I worked my butt off and got degrees to make sure he had somebody to look up to, because I am sure you know, in the hood, you don't have none of that. I built a life to make him have the opportunity to make better choices. And now he has 4 children who have a life to live without their dad. I see right now that your dad isn't here, and I don't know why he's not here, but my nephew is 1 year older than you. And he had a track meet 3 days ago that my brother cannot attend. He plays violin. He has a conference concert coming up. His dad cannot be there. He can't be there. It's not that he didn't choose to be there. He can't be there, and he has 2 little girls, 3 and 5. They will never get to see their dad hold them. He can't be there for their prom, walk them down the aisle, nothing, because you decided to be around the wrong people, but I'm sure because your mother is here today, told you to stop being around those people. I know she did because I feel her pain right now. I know she did. You have to think about the choices that you make. And today, you're given an opportunity that my brother will never have again. And that's to witness the love of his mother, to witness the love of his family. You have people here that obviously care for you, and you need to honor their love by being a better person and making better choices. You have to, because they don't want to be back here. And I wish I didn't have to be here. You broke my family. My dad doesn't talk for days at a time. He won't say anything to anybody because he's hurt. We moved here from what is known as the worst city for violence in the world, in the US, for a better life, and because you decided that you wanted to do what you wanted to do instead of following the laws of this land, my brother is no longer here. That's not fair to you, that's not fair to me, and that's not fair to your own family. You have an opportunity today to make this the last time you have to be in court. I hope with everything that is in me, that even just to honor your mother, my brother, your family, my family, that you have broken, that you will do better. If you need help trying to understand what's happening, you need to ask the people that love you, not the streets. The streets don't love nobody. Do better, be better. You have a chance. You're 17. You have your whole life to do dumb stuff and do fun stuff and travel the world. Think about how much bigger this world is than that little moment that you took to stole the lives of so many people. I hope you do better. I pray you do better. I'm praying for your family because I know your mom's heart is breaking. I can feel it. I can feel it. Can you? Do better. Please do better. We don't need any more criminals. We need stand-up individuals to stand up for us. I don't know if you have children. I don't know if you ever will have children. But do you think your mother gave birth to you, lived her life for you to do this? No, you broke my family. You broke my family. You broke my family. I don't even know you and you broke my heart. Do better. Do better. That's it. Tell the truth. I don't know if you remember when Ms. Brown told that to you at the disposition hearing when you were in front of me in court last night. At the beginning, you didn't do better. All right. This is a chance that you have. This is a chance that we all want you to have. It's the chance that only you can do better with. Nobody can do that for you. All right, Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully I won't see you again in the adult system. All right, thank you, everyone. That'll be the order of the court.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy?
Yes.
I'll give you a call.